Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Paleo Cooking Live. Today, we're talking about reintroduction. Reintroduction is how you systematically reintroduce specific food groups back into your diet after a 30-day reset, which, of course, as you know, I'm coaching Whole30, and we are on day 26 with our August group. So reintroduction is right around the corner. And as you can see, I've got a lot of stuff going on here today. I've got the Instant Pot going with some instant pho, which is a Vietnamese soup kind of stew. And I have some options to put some different ingredients into that stew. I'm going to show you a cauliflower mac and cheese, so no gluten, but some dairy, and a hummus that is beets and chickpeas. So let's get started with the pho. Just so you know, earlier today, I started by just smashing a couple cloves of garlic, some ginger, rough chop, and I seared the meat, which is a brisket. You can do this with chicken or pork, but I have a brisket in here that's been cooking for 40 minutes. That's it. And I'm just going to take the lid off so I can show you how gorgeous this meat got in such a short amount of time. So it went into the Instant Pot, and I have a video that I'll be posting right after this with all of the steps that happened before now. So you can see this beef just got so tender, it's practically falling apart. And the thing with brisket is because it's a very kind of tough cut, not really a, super tender cut, we can cook it quickly in an Instant Pot where it's going to get a lot of pressure and break it down fast. And then the broth has some seasoning in it that helps with marinating and imparting some flavor into the meat. So as I said, I seared it first, just quickly in the bottom with some avocado oil, threw in the garlic and the ginger, some, you can do soy sauce or you can stick to the coconut aminos. But if you do a soy sauce because you're introducing legumes, which is one of the groups we introduce, do a tamari or something that doesn't have gluten because soy is going to have the legumes and the gluten. Okay, with me so far? So a half a cup, and then a couple tablespoons of fish sauce. And I found this pho broth, which is delicious. It smells amazing. It really is a time saver. You can use this, and it's got all the seasoning and everything already in it, or you can just go with beef bone broth or chicken bone broth if you're doing chicken or pork, whatever you prefer. So now I'm just going to slice this down into some very thin slices because if you've ever had pho before, you know that it's just a big bowl of broth with lots of vegetables and some sliced meats. It's so tender. It's just literally coming apart, and it's going to be so easy to eat with chopsticks. And then once this is all sliced, I'm going to put it back in the broth with some other vegetables because the vegetables don't need as long as the meat to cook. So what I have here are some carrots and some shiitake mushrooms. And I did throw some dried shiitakes into this as well because I just love that umami flavor when I'm doing something that has Asian flavors. And just this little bit left to go. And it is really tender. This is going to be delicious tonight. And I really like when the slices are nice and thin and it's sliced on an angle. Okay, let's not miss anything, right? Who's with me today? Anyone here that I know? My Whole30 group has been really hanging in there, so I'm really proud of them. Okay. Now, I'm just going to take these already sliced shiitake mushrooms and some multicolored carrots and put those right in to the broth. And the broth just smells amazing. And mix it around a little bit. And I'm just going to put the lid back on. And this is going for another 8 minutes. And the pressure cooker sometimes doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. And I'm making sure that the steam valve is sealed. I'm just going to set the cook timer for 8 minutes. It's been on warm, so I had to turn it off. Menu, manual setting. Come on, buddy. Sorry, folks, this is live. Okay. Well, we'll move on. And I'll show you how that's going to look later. The other thing that I wanted to show you are these delicious spiralized vegetables. This is just zucchini that I used with the spiralizer. My daughter got a spiralizer for her KitchenAid mixer, and I borrow it all the time. It has different settings, and it made these long, fun noodles that I will just put into the bowl with the broth and the meat, and that will just go ahead and finish this off. I also have some sliced jalapenos if you like a little heat, and some scallions. You can put these in, or you can just serve this at the end. So your guests or your family can add what they like, and also a little sriracha. And we'll come back to that when I show you how to put the whole bowl together. So the next thing that I want to show you is this cauliflower mac and cheese. And I'll grab the ingredients and I'll be right back. Now, since we're actually doing real cheese, everything else is going to stay Whole30 compatible. And I like to use a skillet for a dish like this because it just goes much faster when you have a shallow pan where you can disperse the heat across a larger surface area. So I'm just melting some ghee. And once that melts, I'm going to add some coconut milk. Again, sticking to keeping it dairy free, except for the cheese. But if you were doing all dairy and you really wanted to see how you did with a lot of dairy, then you could simply use a real milk or half and half or cream. I'm trying to slowly incorporate little bits of the different dishes in together, the different food groups rather. So I think it's easier to do a little at a time. So this is 1 can of coconut milk. The only thing I did is reserve a little bit in a separate dish, and I'll show you why. We're going to bring this to a boil. I'm just going to keep my whisk handy and blend those together. The ghee just gives this a nice buttery flavor and really adds to the cheese. And I'll tell you a little bit about the cheese. If you're going to reincorporate dairy, which a lot of people struggle with dairy, I would recommend doing something that's as clean of an ingredient as possible. Definitely organic. This is a cheddar that I shredded. I bought the block and I shredded it myself. Please don't buy shredded cheese. It's covered with things like sawdust and other things that help protect those individual shreds of cheese. It's really not good for you. It's not a big deal to shred the cheese yourself. Just put it on a shredder, put it in your food processor with the shredding blade and shred it up. This is about 6 ounces of an English grass-fed cheddar. So once this comes to a boil, we're going to add the cheese. And in the meantime, I roasted some cauliflower just with some olive oil, salt, and pepper and put it into this baking dish. Took about 30 minutes at 350 degrees. And then when we make this cheese sauce, I can show you how to just put the cheese sauce over the cauliflower and bake it a little bit. So this is getting close. I can see bubbles. And now I'm just going to slowly add in the cheese. Don't add it all in one clump, kind of sprinkle it around. It's immediately going to come in contact with the heat and start to melt, and then you just stir it in. Now, a lot of times when you make a macaroni and cheese from scratch, you need to make a roux. A roux is equal parts of butter and flour, and it's used as a thickener. Now you can see we already did the butter, which is the ghee, the clarified butter. And now I'm adding to this, rather than flour, because I reserved a little bit of that coconut milk before I put it in the pan, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of tapioca starch to the coconut milk that I reserved. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm making a slurry. A slurry is just a little easier way for the tapioca starch to get absorbed into the hot liquid and not get clumpy. So if you melt it or blend it in to some liquid, I'm using my little whisk, my Widow whisk, and stirring it in really well. And you can do this in advance, but it might settle out a little bit. The starch sometimes will settle out until it cooks. So you just want to kind of give it a quick stir again before you add it to the pan. You can see the cheese is all melted. It's getting a little bubbly. And I don't do much dairy anymore, but boy, does this cheese smell good. Now I'm just going to add this right in. And then you want to stir right away. Don't wait around because it will immediately get thick. And just for a little flavor and a little savoriness, I'm putting in a little bit of granulated garlic, not even a half a teaspoon. And this is immediately thickening up. I'm going to turn the heat off because it will continue to thicken in the oven. We're going to pour this over the broccoli. I just said broccoli. I mean cauliflower. Look how nice and thick that's getting. It's got nice striations from the whisk. It's nice and smooth. That's done. Takes no time. And now I'm just going to pour that all over my cauliflower. I don't even think I need all of this because I could have probably cooked a little more cauliflower. And I'm just going to kind of squish the cauliflower down into the cheese sauce to make sure it's all the way down. Maybe a little more. That looks perfect. Now at this point, if you were completely done with your reintroduction and you wanted to do something like a little cracker crumb on top, you could do that. You could do a paleo or grain-free cracker. I have a delicious almond flour cracker that I like a lot called Simple Mills crackers. You could just crush those up and put it over the top, and that would make this just the most delicious with a little crispy topping and that nice gooey cheese. I'm going to put this in the oven for about 15 minutes, and I'll be right back. And I had this small one already done, so you can see how it looks right out of the oven. Nice and crispy on top, nice and gooey, cheesy. Get a spoon and dig into this so you can see. And because it's a good cheese and it's not made of oil, it's made of dairy, you can see how nice and creamy this is. If you're going to reintroduce dairy, definitely use the best quality dairy you can find. and, oh, that's hot, and enjoy it. I'll set this aside and I'm going to show you how to do a soft boiled egg for our pho recipe. Now you're probably wondering, why do I show you how to cook an egg? This is a brilliant technique. Again, I'm using a skillet, turning the heat on, and I'm basically going to steam this egg. So I'm only going to put about an inch of water into the bottom of the pan. It doesn't even have to be completely submerged. Look, it's early morning and you need to get breakfast and you don't have time for water to boil. So we're going to steam. Once it comes to a boil, we're going to put a lid on it. So I'm just going to set that over here, and I'm going to come around and figure out what's going on with my Instant Pot. There we go. We're going to say clear, menu, cooking timer. And I only want to do 8 minutes. And those have been in there already in that heat. So maybe we'll just do 7 minutes. Much better. Clean up my mess. Because I really want you to see how I do this hummus. So while this egg is cooking, I'm going to show you how I make this hummus. A great way, again, to incorporate the legumes, but not a lot of legumes at once because that's really harsh. Legumes are a bean, and they contain an anti-nutrient called lectins. Lectins are really difficult to digest, which is why there are so many jokes about eating beans and all of the side effects that come with it. And they really do provide a great amount of protein, but it's not a complete protein like meat. But they are delicious and a lot of people can tolerate them. So what I'm recommending with this recipe is blend some veggies in with your hummus. This is starting to come to a boil. So let me show you real quick. Told you I got a lot going on today. It's just starting to boil. So we're just going to cover that just like that. And set the timer for 6 minutes. Hey Siri. Nope. Set the timer for 6 minutes.
Okay, 6 minutes and counting.
Okay, now I'm going to grab the ingredients for this hummus. I think you're going to find this is a really unique way to do hummus and get some vegetables in there. First thing I did was roast a whole beet. I roasted a whole beet in the oven, peeled it, and diced it up. That's it. This is so easy. Beets you can put in the oven, set it, and forget it. And then I've got about 2 cloves of garlic. I like to mince them up a little bit because I don't like the big chunks to get stuck on the blade of the food processor. And I'm just going to put the lid on and pulse that. What I'm trying to do is get the beets processed down to a very fine crumb, minced, really minced, almost juiced. And again, remember, if you're using a rubber spatula in your food processor, it will get stuck in the tip of the blade, so be very careful when you're doing that. And I'm just scraping the sides down to make sure everything stays in the bottom of the bowl. And pulsing. And you can see now it's getting into these tiny pieces. Almost a puree. A little more. And it sounds good. It doesn't sound chunky anymore. You got to listen to your food. Now I have about a half a can of chickpeas. This is the traditional main ingredient for all hummus. But rather than going straight hummus with all those legumes, we're just going to add a little bit to the beets You get that nice roasted sweet flavor from the beets, and you're incorporating some vegetables in with the legumes. And I'm just going to process that a little more. Hi, Mary Healy. How's your side of Florida? I'm making something that's not quite as brown as some of the things you post, but they always look delicious. Tell Vinny I said hi. I'm just scraping this down again. Keep giving it a whir, scrape and whir, because you want it to be smooth. And it's really getting there. And now I'm going to add a little bit of tahini. Tahini is a sesame paste. You can get it pretty much anywhere these days. And I'm just using this soup spoon. You can call it a couple of tablespoons or whatever you like. It does have a tendency to settle. There's nothing in it to make it, hold together. So it will get some oil on top, and then you just want to stir it together before you add it in. This gives the hummus that signature smoky sesame flavor. I might just do a little bit extra. And be careful with the garlic. You think you need a lot of garlic, and then it sits in the fridge for a day and it's really garlicky. The flavors definitely meld together. So if you're a garlic fan, you still want to go a little easy on the garlic. And this is the most beautiful pink color. You're going to serve this to your friends and they're going to go, what is that pink stuff? But it is delicious. When you eat it, you get that nice sweet bite first from the beets. And the other thing I'm going to add is some Greek yogurt. I'm using the Kite Hill almond milk Greek yogurt. If you want to do regular yogurt, then you're doing dairy and legumes. You don't want to incorporate or reintroduce more than one food group at a time. So either do the legumes or the dairy. So that's why I recommend for this recipe doing the almond milk yogurt. And we're only going to use about a half a container. Sometimes there's a little liquid on the top, so I'm just pouring that off. And I'm just going to grab my spatula. Just cut this right in half down the center and push that in. And while I've got the food processor open, I'll scrape it down one more time. And I'm going to add some lemon. I cut a lemon in half. Typically, I would recommend zesting first and then cutting in half, but this still works. And I'm just going to zest about half a lemon, and then I'm going to add the juice of half a lemon. And this gives it that nice little bit of brightness. Juice this guy the rest of the way. And one last little whirl around the food processor. And I'll just turn that on for a minute. And our egg, where'd my Siri go? I'm having all sorts of technical difficulties today. There she is. Okay. Let me get a bowl so I can show you how beautiful this looks, and then we're going to peel that egg. I have this fun bowl. I think it looks great with these colors. And you can see this got nice and smooth and creamy. And remember my trick? So the blade doesn't fall out, put your finger inside that hole in the bottom where the blade is. Put your finger in there and grip the side, and you will never drop the blade out of your food processor, because What a mess that makes. And because this has a very natural sweetness with the roasted beet, I'm serving it with the pickled vegetables that I pickled last week. If you watched last week, you saw me use some grilled vegetables in a little bit of pickling juice. And they've been in my fridge for a week. I'll unwrap them now. They look amazing. And some sliced cucumbers. You can do any sliced vegetable you want. And there we have pickled vegetables with beet hummus. That might be my lunch. Now, you know, these days we're trying to socialize. We have to stay socially distant. So take a look at this. You can get these little verines, these little plastic disposable containers at a party store, and you can put a little bit of the beet hummus, a little bit of the beet hummus in the bottom, and then just stack the vegetables inside. These are the pickled green beans. And then you can just, each person have their own to dip and eat. And you can just fill this with vegetables if you want. And that nice bright dill pickle flavor of the vegetables with the beet hummus, it's a perfect combination. Save that for later. Let's see how this egg looks. I'm just going to rinse it in some cold water so that I can handle it to peel. It'll only take a second to rinse it off. Slide that out of your way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to step over here to the sink for a second. And these eggs are the perfect accompaniment to this pho. And I like my noodles al dente. So I'm going to add the noodles at the very end, right into the bowl. And do a quick release on the steam. While that's opening, let me crack this egg for you. My dad, I don't know if he's watching today, used to always tell a joke whenever I asked him for something. He'd say, as soon as I peel this egg I got in my back pocket. And I never understood what that meant. But then I realized as I got older, people don't carry eggs around. So the likelihood of me getting what I was asking for was pretty small, pretty remote. This guy's still a little hot, but I don't want to drop a totally cold egg into, I love when the shell just comes right off like that, don't you? Look at that. I'm going to cut this guy in half and you will see how perfect the inside is. 6 minutes from right out of the refrigerator, steam it, peel it, you're done. Isn't he gorgeous? I've got this beautiful bowl, nice big rimmed soup bowl. And as soon as this guy's done steaming, we're going to open it up and finish this off. So let's start with some of these beautiful zucchini noodles. They're so long, I'm just going to kind of break them with my hands. You can cut them with a knife. As they come off of the spiralizer, you can break them into bits. Makes them very easy to pick up and eat with your chopsticks. I think that looks pretty good. This lid is definitely a safety feature. It's not coming off. until the steam's completely done. So what else can I tell you about? My Whole30 group in September is starting September 14th. We're going to do about 5 days of prep before that. So I think that works out to be September 9th will be our first day. If you're interested in doing a Whole30 reset, September is a great time to do it right before the holidays. You have November right around the corner. That gives you plenty of time to do a reintroduction and really take a look at what foods work for you and what don't. It helps you plan your holiday meals if you're entertaining. Nobody's really sure what's happening for the holidays this year. But if you're home, you're not traveling for work, you don't have a lot going on, it's a great time to do a little self-care and try a Whole30. You're going to eat meat, fish, fruits, vegetables. That's it for 30 days. Healthy fats, no additives, no added sugars, no sweeteners, no alcohol. You are completely cleaning out your system, giving your gut a chance to heal. And you know, right now, immunity is a big deal. You need to make sure that your immune system is operating in tip-top shape. And 70% of your immune system resides in your gut. So why wouldn't you make sure that the rest of your system is operating properly? You know, you've heard me say it before. Your gut is your garden. Do you want to grow flowers or do you want to grow weeds? I want to grow flowers. So think about joining me. All the information's on my website, or you can DM me on Facebook or send me an email if you know how to reach me. There's a contact page on my website as well, and you can send me a quick email, and I'd be happy to do a 20-minute consultation and talk to you about where your needs are, how you want to try and improve what you're doing with your health. And I think it's a great way to reset. Just give yourself 30 days. This could be done. Nope, not yet. There we go. And it's bubbling. Looks so good. I have this ladle. I'm just going to start ladling this broth right over these noodles. And they're zucchini. They're not, you know, gluten or rice noodles, so they don't need a lot of time to cook. This is really all they need. And now I'm just going to add some of that meat. Let me get this guy out of the way so you can see. Some of these meat slices. Oh. Julia Child, I ain't got nothing on you when it comes to making a mess. And we'll float those egg slices on top. I've got some cilantro. Some fresh parsley. Some basil. This basil I just picked this morning from my yard. These leaves are huge. And I just love to drop them in whole because it just makes everything so fragrant. Just like when you go to a Vietnamese restaurant and they bring you that giant platter of fresh herbs. And then, of course, you could hit this with some of this sriracha. I love this sriracha. It's sweetened with dates, so there's no added sugar. All of the sugar is natural, real, not added. I throw in a few jalapeno slices, and some of these scallions. I mean, come on. This is totally Whole30. The only thing you would change in this would be if you use the tamari instead of the coconut aminos, and if you used rice noodles instead of the zucchini noodles. So it's a great reintroduction dish. All of these are very flexible, very interchangeable. I'm going to add a little olive oil to the top of my hummus. That's one of my favorite things, is to have that olive oil just sort of floating on top. I was lucky enough to get this bottle at a trade show in January. Some fresh parsley. Where did I put my parsley? There we go. My parsley's not looking so good in the yard. So we have this delicious beet hummus with the pickled vegetables from last week, delicious bowl of pho, and our macaroni cauliflower roast with cheese. Thanks for coming. I appreciate when you can join me. Remember to send me a message if you're interested in the Whole30, and I'll see you next week. Have a great day.